First
Oh, step Stalin. I'm stuck in Poland. I have to, okay. Let's watch Oversimplified World War 2, chat. I don't think I've watched the channel before. I do have dementia, so if I have, then crucify me. I swear I'm not trying to lie. I just don't think I have.
was made possible by Skillshare.
Oh, I don't
Churchill
recognize
was
his
a man
voice.
with many talents. He was an artist.
Okay, no, you know, now I'm convinced. I've never seen this. I've never seen I'm thinking of Bill Wirtz. I'm thinking of entire history of the world. Let's go. Wait, who is this guy?
A butterfly enthusiast, and he had an unpublished manuscript
Wait, who
about
is he?
aliens. Clearly, he was a man with an insatiable thirst for knowledge. Maybe he could have loaded up his computer and logged onto.
I missed his name. Who was that? Winston. Wait, like the Churchill one? Damn. The Churchill kind?
Skillshare, an online learning community with more than 19,000 classes in design, business, technology, and more. Perhaps he was considering a side career in fashion, but didn't know where to start.
Didn't know he was
he would
Skillshare.
find courses in fashion design and garment construction. Or if he wanted to learn app design, improve his photography, or just how to make a really good quesadilla, he would have found courses for all of these and more on Skillshare. Skillshare gives you access to high-quality classes taught by genuine experts working in their field. I work heavily with animation, and I was genuinely blown away by the number of really
Sorry
useful
guys,
courses
I don't skip
available
the
to me. Like this
sponsors.
class full of tips and tricks for creating vector art, or this one for creating character
It's
walk
ethical
cycles.
reacts,
For an annual
baby.
subscription, Skillshare is under $10 a month. And if you'd like to try it out first, then I've got a deal just for Oversimplified viewers. The first 1,000 people to use this link, which can be found in the description, will get their first 2 months of Skillshare
I don't think that's
for
still
just
available, but
99 cents. Be sure to try it out using the link in the description and learn something new today.
This is 7 years
Now,
old,
without
but
further ado, it's 1902. A young man by the name of Benito Mussolini moves from Italy to Switzerland to avoid military service.
I've heard about a
He
guy.
gets big into socialism, working for trade unions, writing for socialist newspapers, advocating a violent overthrow of European monarchies, the whole shebang. This gets him in a bit of trouble with the Swiss police, so he gets arrested, sent back to Italy, set free, returns to Switzerland, is arrested again, goes
That's
back
crazy.
to Italy again, completes his military service after previously avoiding it, and then after a brief stint as an elementary school teacher, he finally returns to work as an avid socialist. His speeches and journalistic abilities
I
made him
can tell why you go crazy after working as a middle school teacher. You don't know. You don't know how it's like. I don't know what it's like. I've never done that, but must suck.
famous among Italian socialists. He was anti-war, so when Italy colonized Libya in 1910, he rioted and got arrested. Then World War I came along, and once again he protested Italy's involvement. But then he thought, wait a minute, this war could bring about
I'm confused because I always thought he was a fascist, not a socialist. But I don't think I know the lore that well.
the social climate needed to overthrow European monarchies and bring about the socialist revolution everywhere. And suddenly he was pro-war. But his fellow socialists didn't like his new pro-war stance, so they kicked him out of the party. So then he said, you know what? I'm done with socialism. We need something new, not
Ah, I see. He made it the fuck up. You teach students? No, but I have a Twitch chat and it's almost the same. This is World War 2, yeah.
based on class divisions tearing us apart, but based on unity through nationality. We'll conquer the Mediterranean and reunite all Italian peoples just like the days of the Roman Empire. I'll call it fascismo, and it will guide the Italian nation to greatness. That's all well and good, Mr. Mussolini, but what kind of haircut am I giving you? Let's go with bold.
What? Why did he go bold? Nah, there's no way. He was just balding. He was balding and he balded it for that, bro. Ain't no one that got a full head of hair like he had before balding by choice.
Italy had been on the winner's side in World War I, and they hoped they were going to get a lot out of it, but in the end, they only got a little, and they felt cheated. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that the Italian people were a little unhappy. So when Mussolini came along and said that he could fix everything, his fascist movement gained a lot of support. In 1922, he went to the king.
It's always when the people are in the most moments of instability that shit like this happens, if you ever notice. You know, it's always when the economy bad.
said, "Make me prime minister or I'll make me prime minister." And the king said, "You and what army?" "This army." Fair enough. Then he went about establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe had its first fascist dictator. Next up, Germany. Germany had been on the loser's side, and they got absolutely wrecked by the Treaty of Versailles. They lost territory, had to demilitarize the
So
Rhine.
basically, World War II was happening because people got bitter that they felt screwed out of the winnings of World War One. Look, guys, I'm not a history buff. I'm a history scrawny at best. Ho 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 ho! Cue the laugh track! Okay, whatever.
Finland had to reduce their army to just 100,000 men, couldn't have an air force, had to pay the Allies a huge amount of money that it didn't have, and a new rule was established that every Englishman withheld the right to walk into the center of Berlin, pick out any German they wanted, and spank the hell out of them.
What?
I made that last one up, but it helps you understand how all of this felt to Germans. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that when a small angry man with a silly mustache came along and said that he could fix everything, the German people loved it. Hitler had been a soldier during World War I, and he was crazy patriotic, and nobody was madder than him about Germany's humiliation. He helped start a new political party, and in 1923 attempted a march on Munich with his boys. And then he got arrested. But his popularity grew and grew, and in 1933, the president made him chancellor. He believed he was Germany's great destined savior, and he went full megalomaniac, establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe had fascist dictator number 2. Hitler and Mussolini had a lot of the same ideas.
I kind of knew about this part, but I never knew how Japan got involved into it. I'm actually just like blowing up the Twitch man. Oh my god, you're so right. Wait, getting arrested and then coming back for these dictators really must be like blowing up of a Twitch man. Wait, that's so true. Yeah, I never know how Japan got involved. I'm really curious about that side.
But more importantly, they had the same enemies, and they started to get along. Anyone else want to be friends?
Oh my god, have you watched Italia? Chat, anybody watch Italia?
I do. Who's that? It's Japan, and they've taken over northern China. Let's rewind a bit. Japan had isolated itself from the rest of the world for over 200 years until the Americans showed up and said, "You're going to trade with us and you're going to like it." Then the Western powers imposed a bunch of unequal treaties, meaning Japan's economy was bust. They also had no natural resources, so they decided to go get some. They went to war with China to gain a sphere of influence over Korea, and they took a bunch of China's stuff. But then the West said, "Hey, cut that out." And since Japan couldn't take on the West, they said, "Okay, I guess we'll just go home." Wait a minute, what are you doing? Taking advantage of a weakened China and setting up spheres of influence. But I was the one who weakened them. We know. And you guys didn't let me have anything. We know. That seems unfair. We don't think so. Okay, see ya. So Japan thought, screw this, and went to war with Russia, and stunned everyone by actually winning. Then they fully annexed Korea, but they didn't stop there. In World War I, they took Germany's colonies and islands in Asia. And then in an incident that was maybe staged by the Japanese army, a bomb blew up a Japanese train in Manchuria, giving them an excuse to launch an invasion and take over. So here's the situation. Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Japan all believe they're racially superior, all feel hostility towards the Allies, and all want to militarize...
It is funny. It is funny okay, how 3 nations that are like so different and they all think the same thing, man.
and take over more stuff. And so they did. Let's start with Germany. Hitler hated the Treaty of Versailles, and now he was ready to begin undoing it. In complete violation of the treaty, the first Luftwaffe squadrons were set up, conscription...
Like, you know damn well those Germans thought about Japan, like Japanese people, okay? You know damn well how they felt about them, but they're like, you know, I guess an ally's an ally, Chad. An ally's an ally.
...was introduced, and he pimped up his army. The Allies did nothing. Then Hitler sent his army back into the demilitarized Rhineland, giving orders to immediately retreat if the Allies showed up. The Allies did nothing. With his military strengthened, he could now move on to step 2. He wanted to rapidly...
All I know is that France got really fucked in World War II, but I don't remember much. I mean, still now people fall for the one man that'll fix everything. Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like history should have taught us that no one guy is the solution to everything.
Increase the Aryan population, and to do so, he needed Lebensraum, or in other words, he would have to take over the world. But for now, a good portion of Europe would do, and he began eyeing up his neighbors. The Allies finally started to get worried, so they implemented a fairly useless diplomatic strategy called appeasement, and it went a little something like this. Hitler would say, "I want that thing," and the Allies would say, "You can't have that thing." "Okay, you can have that thing, but no more." "I want that thing." And repeat. In 1938, Hitler's army marched into Austria and just took it, with no resistance. Boom. This is
crazy.
Germany now. Next, he
Just
demanded
took
to be
it.
given the Sudetenland, an area of Czechoslovakia with many ethnic Germans. The Allies held a meeting with Hitler in Munich and said, "Look, we're going to give you what... Hang on. This meeting is about my territory. Shouldn't I come to the meeting too? Anyway, we're going to give you what you want." "Really?" "Yeah." "Just like that?" "Yep." "What's the catch?" "Just sign this piece of paper promising you won't invade the rest of Czechoslovakia." "Okay." Then Chamberlain returned home victorious. Wait,
Ain't no way you wrote "so Hitler was a brat" in my chat. Ain't no way you wrote that. That's crazy work. That he needed severe correction is even crazier. Oh God! Oh, Stalin-kun, I need correction. No, stop!
a signed piece of paper in the air, declaring crisis to be averted and the continuation of world peace, and we built a statue of Chamberlain in his honor, and every day on the 30th of September we celebrate Chamberlain Day. Hitler's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia. What? He's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia?
Yeah, I don't think he cared about a paper.
You lied to me. What do you expect? I'm Hitler. Not
He's
to be
bratty.
outdone, Mussolini also wanted to get in on the action. He thought to himself, isn't there a not yet colonized nation somewhere which is so underdeveloped that the people would be defending themselves against our tanks with literal bows and arrows and wooden spears? Oh, there is? Fantastic. And so he took it. Italy also wanted to control the entrance to the Adriatic Sea.
Italy is famous for how great they are in their military accomplishments, huh?
Occupied Albania. Then, in another incident which was maybe staged by the Japanese, gunfire was exchanged by Japanese and Chinese troops at the Marco Polo Bridge, and the Japanese launched yet another invasion against China. They swept through Beijing and Shanghai, and then advanced through the Yangtze Valley to China's then capital, Nanking. It was here that saw the worst of Japan's shocking atrocities committed against the Chinese people. Back in Europe, Germany and Italy made their relationship status official by signing the Pact of Steel. Then, Hitler turned his eyes towards Poland and the hated Polish corridor, splitting Germany in two. At this point, the Allies really had to put their foot down, and they warned him that an invasion of Poland would mean war.
Oh,
Hitler
I know about this one. I know about a Poland thingy. That's all I know. Bradler is such a vibe. I wish I wasn't working so I could have come up with it. Guys, I don't think we should minimize the atrocious war crimes of Hitler to him being a brat. Guys, I don't think we should do that. I don't think we should do that. Chat. Oh god. Oh god. But at the same time, you're right though. I think if he was alive, he would be more pissed off at being called a brat than being treated seriously, Chad. Low key, you know what? Low key? If I was like a horrible dictator and stuff, I would rather people fear me and always talk about me seriously than call me a brat. So yeah, Bradler canon. He just needed correction. High key, he needed correction. Fuck. Oh. Yeah, so about shaming him, yeah.
planned to continue his advance eastward, but he didn't want to end up fighting a war on two fronts. So for now he made an alliance with Stalin, saying, how about we both...
Oh my god. Do you think Stalin-kun is gonna correct... I can't! We need to stop. He corrected himself! Brother and Mussolini! I didn't think this is how this video was gonna go. I thought we were gonna have a serious time learning about World War II. Fuck, my body hurts. My core hurts. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, Mussolini. Okay. Okay, let's just learn. Let's learn.
Invade Poland
I'm
and split it
serious
between
from
the
now
two of
on.
us,
I'm
and
serious.
I definitely won't not refrain from
I'm
not betraying
serious.
you
I'm
sometime in the
serious.
future.
Mussolini.
Sounds good. This new alliance stunned the West. On the 1st of
Oh, step Stalin. I'm stuck in Poland. I have to, okay.
In
Okay.
1939, German troops entered Poland, and Britain and France declared war on Germany. The Poles fought hard, but they were no match for the two giants crashing down on them from either
Poland
side.
Chan.
Then came a period known as the Phony War, where everyone just sort of sat around not doing much. The French had launched a small invasion into the Saarland, but they maintained mostly defensive positions, and after a while decided to just turn around and call it a day. Speaking of France, the French were still super proud of their victory in World War I, and they hadn't really moved on from it. They still used horses, they dispatched messages by motorbike instead of using radio, orders from the commander-in-chief were usually pretty vague, and the troops were rarely inspected.
Yeah, that looks French, typical French. Let's skip the part about France did. No, we'll watch it. We'll watch it open eyes. Okay, Lemix is our only French mod, and our only mod right now, our hero, the hero of the people. We'll watch it with the eyes open.
They built a line of defenses along their German border, but didn't bother extending it all the way to the Channel, and they wouldn't launch artillery strikes against Germany out of fear of being retaliated against. In a war, they didn't want to attack the enemy. And at first the UK wasn't much better. Chamberlain still naively hoped that the war could be ended diplomatically. Instead of bombing raids, the RAF dropped propaganda leaflets over German cities, which...
That's not a deal with the bread. You know, you can't deal with the bread by asking nicely. Come on. I'm going to hell. I'm going to hell. I'm going to hell. We're all going to hell.
Which one air marshal said likely did nothing but provide the continent with toilet paper for the duration of the war. They also only sent 200,000 men to France, while the French had mobilized millions. Both Britain and France wanted to avoid a repeat of the First World War, and so they wanted to keep the war as far from home as possible. So they turned their eyes north, towards Norway. Neutral Sweden was exporting iron ore to Germany through neutral Norway, so the Allies asked them if they could please stop exporting iron ore to Germany, but this request was refused. Then the Soviet Union...
I never knew all these details. I saw World War II started just like, I'm gonna be honest, the way they taught me to be in school, I mean, now that I think about it, it's kind of like when you think about Santa Claus, and you used to think he was real, but then you think a bit more, and you're like, thinking back, it's pretty obvious that it was just my parents. Now, like, I think about it, in my version of history that I knew, it was kind of just like a sudden thing where there was the Poland thing, and like some guy got assassinated, Franz Ferdinand got assassinated, and then it just started out of nowhere. But now that you see, now that I have a developed frontal cortex and I think back on it, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that it would have been like a long build-up with a lot of geopolitical factors. Wait, that's World War One? Franz Ferdinand is World War One? I mean, look, but like, okay, look, I mixed it up, but like, same thing. The same thing with World War II. I knew that there was like, I thought it kind of just suddenly happened after the Poland thingy. You know?
Finland. So the Allies said, how about we land troops in Norway and move them across Sweden to go help out your good pal Finland, and along the way maybe take control of all your airfields. But Norway and Sweden still said no. So the UK mined the waters around Norway to force any transport ships into international waters, and they also attacked a German tanker they found in the area. Hitler realized what the Allies were up to, and he quickly moved to secure his supply of iron ore. He launched an invasion through Denmark
Germany's
into
huge.
Norway. The Allies rushed to land troops at key ports along the coast, but Germany had taken control of Norway's airfield, and their air superiority decided the fight. The Allies had to retreat. After this slightly embarrassing failure, Chamberlain resigned and was replaced with Winston Churchill, who had a slightly different approach to dealing with it.
Good man. He's a proper Mexican geezer, that one, ain't it?
That's the most British man I've ever seen. You know he gets his Greg's sausage roll in the morning, man. In the morning.
Germans. Hitler's overall strategy was similar to Germany's First World War strategy. Attack France, defeat France, knocking out the UK in the process, then turn on the Soviet Union and win the war. During the Phony War, the Allies had given Hitler time to prepare his forces. Now, he was ready to attack. The Allies had wanted to place troops in Belgium, but Belgium had refused, and in a move that surprised pretty much no one, Hitler launched an invasion to get around France's defenses. The Allies charged into Belgium at full speed to meet the German invasion head-on, and it looked like a repeat of the First World War was coming. But this time, Hitler had a trick up his sleeve. blitzkrieg. As the Germans advanced, they sent thousands of refugees westward,
It's funny because I've heard that word before, but I never know what it means.
slowing down the Allies. Then, to the south, the French had left the Ardennes, an area full of hills and forests, pretty underdefended because they thought it was naturally impenetrable. Well, the Germans were about to penetrate it with everything they had. They smashed 50 Wehrmacht divisions through and encircled the Allied armies at lightning speed. The best of the Allied forces were now trapped. The Germans squeezed in from all sides, taking out France's best armies and nearly wiping out the British too. But they managed to make a desperate last-minute escape at Dunkirk.
Oh, I heard about it, Dunkirk.
Ships even making the perilous journey to bring their young men home. With most of the French forces depleted, the Germans breezed through, taking Paris.
That's
and France
crazy.
fell. What the Germans couldn't do in World War I, Hitler had done just like that. Hitler hoped that with the fall of France, the UK would also lose hope and sue for peace. But quite annoyingly, it didn't, and he needed to secure
Yeah, no, the British, it's hard to deal with them. The British are on an equal wavelength of Brad. Okay. What Bradler didn't know is that a new Brad was in town. Winston motherfucking Churchill.
Western Front, so he tried to force them into submission with mind games. The UK were now all alone, and Hitler wanted to emphasize that. First of all, just before France fell, Italy finally declared war on the Allies, making the UK's situation even worse. Next, instead of just occupying all of France, Hitler occupied the coastal areas for defense, but allowed France to continue its existence as a German puppet state. This way, it looked like the UK's old ally had decided to switch sides. Hitler also hoped that the UK wouldn't attack any of her old allies' navy bases or colonies in Africa, giving Hitler an extra line of defense to the south. But the UK made sure to respond to this by sailing down to France's navy base in Algeria and wrecking a bunch of ships. So have at it. Hitler then began laying down plans for an invasion of Greece.
He did the thing where, like, you know, where, like, the evil guy takes over the body of one of your friends and it's like, haha, but if you hit me, you'll hit your friend. And the UK was like, yeah, we hate the French. We'll hit you. Question mark? Wait, you don't know the trope? It's like the trope when the supervillain, like, takes the body of, like, the girlfriend of the hero and it's like, you can't hit me. And then she'll beat him up and he just has to take it because, like, he can't fight back. You know? Yeah.
Britain, before German troops could land on British soil. He would first need air and naval superiority across the Channel. Waves of German bombers came, while the completely outnumbered RAF worked bravely around the clock in an attempt to quell the German attacks. At first, the Luftwaffe targeted British ports and coastal facilities. Then it attacked RAF bases, crippling the RAF's ability to defend the nation. And it looked like Hitler's Great British Invasion was coming. But then, Churchill ordered a small, pretty insignificant bombing raid over Berlin. It didn't do much damage, but Hitler was furious, and he immediately ordered the Luftwaffe to refocus its attacks on civilian targets in London. Children were sent off to the countryside, away from their parents to avoid danger, and frequent trips to air raid shelters became a daily occurrence. But British morale held firm. Smiling, knitting, lounging casually, these people have balls of steel. This refocusing on London also gave the RAF breathing space to reorganize, so Hitler kind of shot himself in the foot there. Just the foot for now. Finally, the Luftwaffe sent one massive all-out attack on London, and the RAF successfully repelled it, destroying many of the German aircraft and placing air superiority firmly in British hands. Hitler's invasion had to be postponed, but the bombing of British cities continued for some time.
You have such a great way to perceive a real world history. Ah, thank you, man. Thank you. Can't believe this makes the British look kind of cool almost. Let's get to part 2.
This video was made possible by
Let's
Skillshare,
get to part
an online
2.
learning community. Stick around until the end of the video to learn how you can get an exclusive deal just for OverSimplified viewers. So what else is happening? Well, when I said Britain was all alone, that wasn't entirely true. Many Commonwealth nations and other allied colonies have joined in.
Heck yeah! Freedom and burger!
War and Britain's support. They would play a key role.
You know what I do know about World War II? You know, surprisingly, who did like a lot of heavy lifting in Europe? You want to think about it? The Russians. From what I know, the Russians kind of carried World War II. I don't know if it's right though, cause my... Oh wait, that is Canada. Oh wait, that is... Wait, that is Canada. Oh wait, that is... Ah, same difference, isn't it? I love repeating. Stalin ended this little brat. Yeah, Step Stalin is real.
Throughout the war, particularly in the African and Italian campaigns. On the Axis side, Germany, Italy, and Japan signed the Defensive Tripartite Pact, bringing their military alliance even closer
Oh
together.
my god, it's just like
The Soviet Union's war
Italia.
against Finland should have been an easy victory, but it became a humiliating struggle, and their military ineptitude was put on full display. In the end, they did force the Finns to sue for peace. Then, they continued their honorable campaign of pushing around much smaller countries by annexing the Baltic states and part of northern Romania.
Oh, that's Romania. That's Romania. That's Moldova. They took Moldova. They took Moldova. That's us. That's us. That's fish. That's us. That's us. That's us. Romania mentioned. That's me. That's me. I'm right there. I'm right there. I'm literally there. I'm literally there. I'm literally there. I was alive during World War II. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
France's colonies in equatorial Africa were like, heck
Docs,
no, we
full
aren't going to join
docs.
the Germans, and they all pledged their allegiance to free France, except for Gabon, which had to be taken by military force. The Allies also tried to capture the strategic port of Dakar, but that ended in failure. Mussolini had seen Hitler's successes, and he thought now it was Italy's time to shine, so he tried to take British Somaliland, and that went pretty well. Then he tried to take Egypt, and that went less well. Then he tried to take Greece, and that went really badly. Churchill began referring to Italy as Europe's soft underbelly.
Even back then, they knew that the way to get around him was to rage bait. Okay? Churchill literally rage baited Italy.
He began favoring a military campaign from the south and started sending British troops to Greece. All of this had Hitler pretty concerned, and he moved to protect his southern flank. He had been
Europe
getting friendly
soft
with Hungary
pussy.
and twisted their arm into signing the Tripartite Pact.
I'll get
and
him,
joining the
Hungary.
Axis powers. Romania was
Yeah, Hungary. Look at them. Look at them. Look at these fucking leeches. They just wanted our brains. They just wanted part of us. Yeah, imagine allying with fucking Bratler just to get a piece of this. Okay, losers.
also eager to join for protection against
Oh, I forgot that we did do that. Oh yeah, wait, this is World War II after all. We did do that. Wait, actually. Look, we swapped. We swapped at the end. We swapped. Maybe we were on the wrong side for 2 years. Okay, we swapped. We swapped after. We did swapsies.
the Soviet Union. The Tripartite Pact
Spoilers? No, bro, it's been like years.
was designed to prevent any other countries from deciding to join the
It's
Allies.
crazy that it's not been that long, right? Because I was gonna say it's been 100 years, but I'm like, no, it hasn't. What the fuck? It's not been that long.
Specifically, Britain's old ally, the pesky United States of America. When war first broke out, American public opinion was strongly against joining in. In 1940, there was an election. The Republican
Who
candidate
the fuck is Wendell Willkie? I know his ass didn't get elected because who the fuck is Wendell Willkie? I've heard of Franklin D. Roosevelt, never heard of Wendell Willkie.
said, "I will not send any young Americans to die in Europe." And sitting President Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "I will also not send any young Americans to die in Europe. Unless I have to, then I might." And Roosevelt won. Churchill asked him to join the war, but Roosevelt said, "No can do, Winston. But you know what? Here, have some weapons." America began supplying the Allies with food and munitions, but there was one problem. German U-boats were sinking thousands of Allied supply ships in the Atlantic, including American ones. If the Germans could sever Britain's supply line, the UK would starve. Throughout the war, the Allies had to come up with better technology to fight the U-boats. Improved radar, aircraft with longer range, better weaponry and convoy tactics. At one point, a man even called a meeting and said, "Pikecrete. You take some wood, you take some ice, you put them together, you get pikecrete." And then he pulled out a gun and shot some wood and it shattered. And then he shot some pikecrete and the bullet ricocheted off it and hit someone else in the conference room.
Oh.
Then they tried to make a pikecrete aircraft carrier, but that idea was scrapped because that's a really dumb idea. In the end, Alan Turing and his team of codebreakers cracked
I know this
Germany's
guy.
Enigma code, and the U-boats gradually became less and less of a threat. Back in Africa, Britain decided to push Italy out of Egypt. Hey, that was pretty easy, so they kept going. Hitler realized he was going
Yeah, that soft underbelly thing was pretty true in it.
to have to finally step in and do something. He went to Bulgaria and Yugoslavia and said, "Hey, I'm going to move troops through you to get to Greece, so either join us or, be invaded." Bulgaria opted to join them. Yugoslavia opted to be invaded. Then Greece finally fell to the joint German-Italian invasion. The
That's
British had moved troops
crazy.
from
They
North
had all
Africa
of
to fight in
Europe.
Greece, which helped Rommel and his tank divisions push the British back to Egypt. And they could have kept going, but a small, mostly Australian force held out under siege for 8 months in Tobruk, denying the Germans a strategic port
crazy.
city and disrupting their supply line. Despite having some success in the Middle East, the British didn't seem like any real threat for now. Hey, Soviet Union, look out.
Yeah.
With 3 million troops, Hitler
Yeah,
launched
you
the
don't wanna
largest ground
try
invasion in
that.
history, and Stalin was far from ready.
That really is oversimplified. Okay, look, this is like years of history into 50 minutes. It is gonna be oversimplified.
Both Churchill and Roosevelt had warned him of an impending attack, but he dug his head in the sand and the Soviets didn't stand a chance. Germany made staggering progress, with huge encircling movements capturing mind-boggling numbers of Russian troops. 250,000 at Bialystok, Minsk, 300,000 at Smolensk,
Damn.
nearly 700,000 at Kiev, and again
It's
at
looking
Vyazma
bad.
and Bryansk. Leningrad was put under a siege that would last an insufferable 4 years. The invasion of
Never invade Russia in winter.
Russia had been Hitler's main ideological goal from the beginning, and his hatred for the ethnic peoples there was now unleashed in all its fury. The Eastern Front of the Second World War was brutal for all that endured it. The Germans were now inside of Moscow, and that's it. It's all over.
Moscow,
But then
Moscow,
it happened. It got cold. Stupid cold.
The
Hitler
winter.
had hoped the Soviets would give up before winter.
Chad, this is such an aura moment, though. This is such an aura moment. They waited till winter, bro. That is pure aura. Pure aura.
But they kept fighting. His commanders came to him and said, "Can we please dig in for the winter and wait until spring?" "No, keep going. But oil is literally freezing inside our vehicles." "That's fine, keep going. We're having to leave the corpses of our frozen horses by the side of the road so we can still find our way in the snowdrift."
He's such a brat. I'm sorry. Such a brat. Brat alert. Brat alert. Jesus Christ. His brattiness is his undoing.
Perfectly normal. Keep going. Hitler hadn't given his millions of men winter clothing and supplies because he thought he really should have won by now. Then, Stalin called in troops from the Siberian front, specially trained to fight in the extreme cold, and the Germans were no match.
That's
they were now
aura.
being pushed back.
That's
they had no
aura.
choice but to dig in and wait for winter to end. Germany's victories were staggering, and Japan was eager not to miss the victory bus. Their war in China had come to a standstill.
This is how Napoleon lost his invasion into Russia. That's crazy. People never learn. People never learn.
But they wanted to keep expanding their sphere of influence and getting those sweet, sweet raw materials. They began making plans to expand southward, but there was a problem. Southeast Asia was heavily colonized by America and Great Britain. It was also full of ocean. Ocean meant naval combat, and there was no way the Japanese Navy could stand up to the US and the UK. So they thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could destroy their navies before we begin our conquest? And so it was. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese launched a surprise air raid on the US Pacific Fleet at Pearl
Oh, I
Harbor.
know about
and
this
inflicted
one.
a huge amount of
I've
damage.
heard about that one. I've heard about a Pearl Harbor.
They also attacked British colonies in Southeast Asia. Roosevelt had no choice but to declare war on Japan, and so did Churchill. Hitler then declared war on America, even though he totally didn't have to. The attack on Pearl Harbor seemed
Yeah, see, like, people want to think he was like some sort of fucking smart, genius, tactical. Nah, bro was a brat. Bro was a brat that lucked out. Low key.
like a big Japanese victory, but they didn't attack any of the naval repair yards, fuel storage tanks, or the submarine base, meaning the Pacific Fleet would be up and running again pretty soon. In the meantime, though, the Japanese were able to begin their conquest. They took Guam, the Gilbert Islands, Wake Island, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. They forced Thailand
Damn.
to join them so they could march their troops through to Malaya.
Yeah, see,
They
for
swept-
some reason, in Europe, they never teach us about continents that are not our own. So they never told us much about, like, the Asia part of things, or, like, you know, I guess the American part of things wasn't that involved. But, I mean, definitely America's a big role. I mean, but, like, mostly, I don't think they had that many troops fighting, right? They mostly sent stuff, right? From what I know. Like, America mostly, they just gave support. But... Or maybe they didn't teach us about it. Maybe, again, maybe this is me thinking that because genuinely the entire history they taught us is very Europe-centric. Like, it's all very Europe.
through Singapore, North Borneo, the East Indies, New Guinea, the Solomons, and they were now threatening northern Australia and the borders of India. Japan's victory had been as staggering as the Germans, and it reinforced the Japanese idea that this was a divine war which they were destined to win. But their victories had been based on speed, not power, and power would eventually catch up with them.
Ooh.
For now, though, in all occupied nations, the people suffered. Persecution, forced labor, harsh punishments for any who spoke out against their...
They did teach us a bit, but it depends on the teacher, I guess. Because the Asian front was not very child-friendly. Yeah, no. This area was the only one I kind of know a little bit from school. The rest, yeah, for the longest time, I didn't even know that the UK basically colonized like 90% of Africa.
occupiers. In Europe, the Nazis
I'm
were
exaggerating
rounding up
with the number,
ethnic
but you know.
minorities and other unwanted groups and individuals.
It's like, because I guess how Americans learn only about US history and they think America's like the center of the world. In Europe, we think, like, I almost thought that Europe was like the only place that mattered, you know. It's Europe, there's American suicide, and that's it.
In particular, millions of Jewish people would suffer through the terrible events of the Holocaust. Brave resistance movements rose up in defiance of their invaders, while the people held out for hope. And hope was coming. Winter was over, and Hitler could continue his push eastward. But this time, he switched up his strategy. He wanted to focus on the south. His plan was to cut off the Russian armies in the Caucasus, an area full of oil, and then invade the Caucasus and take all the oil. His forces moved across the north with ease, and Hitler got cocky. He rerouted the 4th Panzer Army south early, leaving the 6th Army to complete the encircling movement alone. To do so, the 6th Army had to reach and take the key Soviet city of Stalingrad. The Russians defended it fiercely, and Stalingrad saw some of the harshest fighting of the entire war. The Soviets held up the German advance for 5 months as they battled in the war-torn city, which bought them valuable time. When the Germans had first launched their invasion a year earlier, the Soviets had moved their factories to the east. Those factories had been building a butt-ton of tanks and aircraft, and getting the Soviet army up to scratch. Now, it was ready. Stalin gathered his new and improved forces around the city, and in an attack...
I'm telling you, hate it or love it, Russia kind of aura, World War II, okay? World War II Russia kind of aura.
...that resembled Hitler's own encirclement tactics, they began surrounding the 6th Army. Hitler's commanders came to him and said, "Hey, maybe we should retreat." But Hitler said, "No, you stay."
Third shot in the foot.
The entire 6th Army was trapped and had to surrender. With complete air superiority, the Soviets started pushing westward. For Stalin, it was a resounding victory. For Hitler, an absolute catastrophe. Things also weren't looking too good for Hitler elsewhere. With America now in the war, Allied bombing over German cities reached devastating levels. In Africa, the British had pushed Rommel back again. Then they were pushed back again, and finally, after a decisive battle at El Alamein, and with American and British troops arriving in the west, the Germans and Italians were squeezed out of Africa. Japan was also already seeing its rapid success being turned around. They attempted to take the island of Midway, but the US Navy was ready for the attack, and they sank Japan's carrier. Actually, they sank a lot of them. It was a battle from which the Japanese Navy would never recover. British, Indian, and Chinese troops held the line in the harsh jungle terrain of Burma, and the Japanese...
It's funny because I was here. Never ask about what Japan did in World War II, but I actually don't know. You know, to me, it's genuine curiosity. Like everybody says, we don't ask, we don't talk about it. They made anime after, but I'm genuinely curious. Well, don't look it up for your own sake. Human experiments, really evil stuff. They did nothing wrong, bro. The human experiments. It's really fucked. It's really bad. Look, Nanjing Massacre on Wikipedia? Oh god. Oh god. Okay.
Suffered losses in the Solomon Islands and New Guinea. They began to realize they were not invincible. With the Axis out of Africa, the Allies had to decide their next move. Churchill still wanted to attack from the south, while the Americans preferred a full sea invasion in northern France. Alright, said the Americans, we'll do it your way. Allied forces successfully landed in Sicily and began...
The Japanese made Bradler look like a nice guy by comparison. No joke, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Moving north. They also carried out bombing raids over Rome. The thing was, many of the people in Sicily had relatives living in America, and they greeted the American troops quite warmly. With the war reaching home territory, most Italians just weren't that into it, and Mussolini was suddenly very unpopular. He was voted out by his own fascist Grand Council and was toppled from power. Italy immediately began negotiations for surrender. Hitler wasn't surprised and had already sent reinforcements southward. In an operation he ironically called Operation Axis, German troops quickly disarmed Italian troops in the north. The Allies continued fighting the Germans up through Italy, but then winter set in, meaning mud, and everything slowed to a halt. Alright, said the Americans, let's do it our way as well. Germany had made itself a lot of enemies, and millions of Allied troops had been gathering in England as factories worked around the clock producing the war material needed for a super crazy massive the likes of which the world has never seen before invasion of Europe. The Germans knew an Allied invasion would come, but they didn't know where it would land. Thanks to Allied deception tactics, they thought there was a pretty good chance it would come at Calais, but the Allies were really going to land in Normandy because it was less fortified.
Oh, the beach of Normandy, I've heard!
Under the careful planning of General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the invasion that had been long in the making was just about ready to go. Just one thing was preventing the launch: the British weather. For a short while, everyone sat around waiting for a decent day, and then it came. On the night of June 5th, over 1,000 bombers took off and raided coastline defenses, while paratroopers were dropped inland in a bit of a chaotic operation, tasked with sabotaging defenses and capturing key bridges to stop any German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. Early the next morning, the barrage came, as Allied ships fired a huge number of shells at the German fortifications, and then the landings. The Americans at Utah and Omaha, the British at Golden Sword, and the Canadians at Juneau.
The last time the British and Americans were allied. Hell
tremendous
yeah.
struggle with a great loss of life. particularly at Omaha, but the Allied troops captured the beaches and the landings were a success. Then they began
Just
their
like in
movements inland.
Italia.
They took the port of Cherbourg and the city of Caen. The Americans moved south to capture Brittany. Then, in a massive disaster for the Germans, British and Canadian troops from the
What?
north...
Iraq? Guys, I don't know history. I just say shit. Guys, you have to understand. I don't know anything. I just say shit. What I'm talking about is like the memes, like the meme wars between the British and the Americans. Right now, the Americans are like, haha, bad teeth, British. And the British are like, haha, no healthcare. You think I know? You think I know about wars? I don't know. I don't know shit. I'm just yapping.
And Americans from the south trapped the German 7th Army in a near wipeout encircling movement. In August, Allied troops landed in the south of France to little resistance. On one beach, all they found was a Frenchman handing out champagne. Paris was liberated, and the Germans were pushed out of France as the Allies...
History? What about her story? What about her story, Chad? Come on, guys. I'm just an anime girl.
In the Far East, the Allies started to push the Japanese out of Burma, as the Americans launched a two-pronged offensive in the Pacific. In the south, General MacArthur led the push to liberate the Philippines, while General Nimitz oversaw the brutal island-hopping campaign. American forces had to make hard-fought landing after hard-fought landing on fiercely defended small islands as they moved steadily towards the Japanese mainland. The Japanese believed that the greatest thing a person could do was to die in battle, and the most dishonorable act was to surrender. As a result, they fought ferociously to the very end, and the closer the Americans got to the mainland, the more ferocious the resistance became. In February 1945, the Americans captured the island of Iwo Jima, and an intense firebombing campaign of Japan's wooden cities began. The Allies suffered some setbacks trying to liberate the Netherlands, but they were making progress and were now threatening the industrial heartland of Germany. Hitler's health, both mentally and physically, was rapidly deteriorating. Things were looking bad, and he was desperate. He said, "We need to turn this thing around, and I have just the trick. Remember a few years back when we blitzkrieged through the Ardennes and trapped the Allied forces in Belgium? Well, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Again." He gathered his
No one
forces
would expect that. No one would expect the same thing twice. We did get a small Romania mention.
tried to pound them through the Ardennes. He used up the remainder of Germany's strength and resources, and he managed to create quite a nice bulge. He also trapped the American
Battle
forces.
of the Bulge? Wait, it's actually called Battle of the Bulge? America Chad notices your bulge. That's crazy. You didn't know? No, I've never heard of the Battle of the Bulge. I've never heard of the Battle of the Bulge, Chad. Your bulge is so big, Bradler, Chad.
The Belgian town of Bastogne. The Germans sent the trapped Americans a message saying surrender or be annihilated. When it was read out to the commanding officer, he said, "They want to surrender? No, sir, they want us to surrender." Nuts! And that's what they sent off as their official reply.
Nuts.
General Patton's Third Army then managed to break the siege from the south.
They should have wrote Sugma. Okay, they should have wrote Sugma. And then they're like, what? Sugma or Sugma? Sugma nuts. Yeah. Yeah.
West, and the Germans were pushed back. Hitler's last-ditch attempt had failed, and what followed was a total collapse of the German forces. The Allies pushed into Germany from both sides. The Soviet Union took Warsaw and
Yeah,
kept pushing
he's
to
getting
Berlin. In his
corrected
bunker,
finally.
Hitler realized all hope was lost. Berlin fell.
Self-correction. Self-correction, Chad.
And with it, Hitler's dreams
Oh,
of a
God.
great German empire. Two of the Axis nations had been knocked out. One to go. The Americans began their assault on Okinawa, the last island before they would reach the Japanese
Wait,
mainland.
so Japan was the last to give up? I feel like I should probably know this, but I didn't.
Desperate Japanese fought hard, launching kamikaze attacks on the US ships. The citizens of Okinawa suffered through the terrible fighting, but in 2 months, the island was captured. The Allies now had to make a choice. Either continue the devastating struggle up the Japanese mainland, or they could try to coerce the Japanese into surrendering now. In July, the first successful atomic bomb test took place in New Mexico, and the destructive weapon was ready for use. America and the UK were also seeing the Soviet Union not so much liberating as occupying its captured territories, and so they wanted to put on a show of force. On August 6th, the A-bomb fell on Hiroshima. Then, on the 9th, Nagasaki. The cities were reduced to rubble, and for the people living there, it was a terrible fate. But for the Allies, it achieved their main aim. In September, the Emperor announced Japan's surrender, saying the war situation has developed not necessarily to Japan's advantage. After 6
Yeah,
years,
nobody keep
war
him fighting after that one, bro. Twice!
was finally over. The Allies occupied Japan for 8 years. The Emperor was allowed to keep his position, but General MacArthur made sure this picture was printed in the Japanese press.
What? Okay. This you and you want this picture printed? I'm sorry, them's the highest waisted pants I've ever seen in my life, bro. Bro, them's the highest waisted pants. Like, this the type of picture that you wouldn't want published. They can go higher? Bro.
To display to the Japanese people that their emperor was not the divine, powerful being they had believed.
Wait, was that picture to show him that the emperor is short? Wait, was that it? That's crazy. So maybe the high-waisted pants were on purpose to look taller, to look like longer legs. That's so funny. That is so funny. Publish the picture to show him that he's a short king? That's crazy.
Divided between America, the UK, France, and the Soviet Union.
Short king, nah, short emperor. Hey.
And the Allied sectors were united into West Germany. The Second
Crazy
World
that
War
height mogging ended the war.
had been more terrible and destructive than the first. In its aftermath, two major superpowers
that did happen after.
Victorious, and the tension between the two of them.
Yeah, look, that's me. That's me. POV me. Yeah, the little buddies in here would have to deal with the things a couple more years after, okay? We would have to deal with it a little bit longer.
Would create a new kind of war. A very, very cold one. Wow, Churchill, that looks just like me. And your app is doing really well. And this quesadilla you made is to die for. How'd you learn to do all this stuff? I used the link in the description to get 2 months of Skillshare for just 90.
Got it, Churchill. We already watched the sponsor in the first video, and this is gonna be all in the same video. So yeah, cinema. Dude, I can't believe the video that I've laughed the most at from, like, I think ever is a World War II video. It doesn't make sense, but I genuinely was feeling my organs leaving my body on that one. That's crazy that a World War II video is what made us die. Oh, God.